What's going on, everybody? Cody and Doug with you. This is the Mojobreak Blitz. We're back. It's football season. It's week 2, or week 2 just wrapped up. And what we're going to be doing every week is just give you a sampling of how the previous week affects the hobby. Guys who are on the rise, guys who are on the fall, and guys you should be keeping an eye on, some sleeper picks in the hobby. Let's talk about some of the guys who had a huge week 2, who saw their value go way up in the hobby. A few guys that come to mind for me: Lamar Jackson, huge game against Kansas City, 342 all-purpose yards, 107 on the ground, and 3 touchdowns. Derrick Carr, this guy keeps doing it with the Raiders. I just looked at his value on eBay, by the way, his most recent card sales. Maybe
Vegas Dave.
Maybe Vegas Dave was right. Yeah, maybe he was right. Although
Too early to tell.
It's only week 2. It's only week 2. But let's talk about who is your pick. Who is the guy who you think saw his value go up the most in week 2, and somebody that you are buying right now?
You know, I'm still buying Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is a guy that I've been buying all last year. I've been waiting it out, and, obviously the beginning of the year was great for him. Kind of sputtered towards the end of the year. Got some great pieces in there. We have another guy on that team we're going to be talking about later in the show. But Kyler Murray looks just fantastic. I mean, the weapons, what he could do with his feet, and then what he could do in the air. And he even has some of those trick play kind of Mahomes-esque stuff, like the throw off the back foot and just making plays happen. I mean, the guy's absolutely electric. I'm still buying Kyler Murray. I know his prices have gone up, but I think if you look at the ceiling, you look at Patrick Mahomes, there's still a lot of room for growth, assuming that he's going to continue this climb. And the team around him is fantastic, and he's also got a young-minded coach who's not afraid to do some gadget plays and kind of switch up the game plan.
Yeah, that's the thing with Kyler, is that he is being surrounded by incredible talent right now. That team is doing everything in their power to make sure they are a contending team in probably the toughest division in all of football right now. And boy, I don't think I've been as big on Kyler as you guys have, and I think he is a spectacular talent, but I think Sunday really changed the game. He had throws, you mentioned it, Patrick Mahomes, that only Mahomes makes. It does have that feeling of like when Steph Curry entered the NBA and started hitting these circus shots, and then suddenly over the next 2-3 years, all these guys started trying to go for the half-court shot, shooting from the logo. That has that feeling right now, and not everybody can do it. In fact, 95% probably of the NFL can't do it. That throw that Kyler had, throwing off his back foot on 4th down, that deep throw, it was just incredible. Only he and like Patrick Mahomes can do that. So I kind of bought in. I bought into him as his talent, but I think for his ceiling in the hobby being super high, I think I've bought in at this point.
Yeah, and here's a kind of a little strategy I would do is if you're holding on to some Kyler Murray cards, I would start moving some of the maybe the ones that aren't as sought after, like maybe like the Phoenixes or let's say Illusions, because those values are really high right now. I would start moving those to try to gravitate towards the Prism, maybe the National Treasures. Obviously, National Treasures is on the high end. Maybe some Contenders. Start moving it into some of those pivotal cards. Those ones that you always see. You see the Contenders, Patrick Mahomes, and those prices are insane. You see the NTRPA Patrick Mahomes. So that's what I would do. Is if I was holding, I necessarily wouldn't be buying those ones, but I would be selling those ones if you have them. Like I mentioned before, the Phoenix, the Illusions. There's maybe Black. Some of the stuff that maybe not a top 5 card. So I'd be buying Prism Silvers as well if you can. I know those are very low pop. Maybe even some Prism Base on the low end, because over time those are going to have a top 5 place in the hobby.
I want to mention a guy we have talked about. We talked about it in one of our preview shows when we were talking about running backs in the hobby. And I think there was one guy that we all kind of agreed, or most of us agreed, is the one guy to invest in, and that's Derrick Henry. I know he had a rough week 1, but boy, did he come out with a vengeance in week 2. Clearly with something to prove. I think he had 182 yards on the ground, 237 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns. I'd want to mention this stat, which I saw, I think it was on NFL Network, and I could not believe it. And it just, to me, solidified how I feel about if you are looking to buy a running back, he is the one and only guy to get. Most career games with 150-plus rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in their career
Wow.
Derrick Henry already has 10.
Jeez.
The same amount as Barry Sanders, and the only guys ahead of him are LaDainian Tomlinson and Jim Brown.
Wow, that's some great company right there.
That's where we're at already.
Yeah, I know we always talk about not buying running backs, but this guy's, he's only really had 3 full years at this point. I know he sat behind DeMarco Murray for a couple years, and I know Dan has been in here and said, well, there's a lot of miles on that. On Derrick Henry, but I still think that the way that guy's built, the way his workout regimen is, the way that he just attacks the hole and just pushes people out the way, it's just strength. And I think he's got at least a good solid 4 or 5 years to come.
Yeah, I guess the flip side of that would be, the other guys on this list. We mentioned Jim Brown, LaDainian Tomlinson, Barry Sanders. Behind him are Eric Dickerson and Emmitt Smith. These are all all-time guys. These are all Hall of Fame guys. But how do they sell? Not crazy. They're not the top QBs. They're not in that category. Barry Sanders, I think, sells pretty well for a Hall of Fame running back. So I guess that really is the ceiling here for Derrick Henry. So there's the argument.
And I think the only thing that would change is, do we see the Titans winning a Super Bowl?
That's true.
During this era. Obviously Tannehill has had some terrible games. I have him on my fantasy team, and it was between him and Lawrence to drop for Daniel Jones. So, that's what worries me later, is that they do play some defenses like Tampa or some defenses that can stack the box. Now, Seattle's a good defense, so for him to do that is promising. But, if they're going to just, let's say, hey, beat us in the air, and I know they have A.J. Brown, and I know they have Julio Jones, but do you think Tannehill can get them to the promised land?
Yeah, well, clearly we saw what the strategy was last Sunday. It's when you're down. There is no other team in the NFL that would do this. You're down double digits, and instead of going to the air, you're going to your running back.
Right.
There's no other team in the NFL that would have done that except for the Tennessee Titans. I think that kind of shows you where their head is at when it really matters the most. So I think Derrick Henry is a really good buy right now, and probably a good sell at the end of the season if he continues to have the type of season he is right now, because again, that list of running backs, they're amazing. They're some of the most iconic names in the NFL, but their value once they retire, maybe other than, like I said, Barry Sanders, Jim Brown, Walter Payton, those types of guys, those guys carry a long-term value, the old school guys. Maybe Derrick Henry enters that list as well, but I think for now, he is still definitely worthy if you're maybe thinking about going running back rather than quarterback here.
And it could be definitely a short term, because right now, the football hobby is at an all-time peak. Any of those people that take the off season off and they're focused on basketball and baseball, they're fully in it right now. Yeah. And the guys that bought Burrow, you look at the last 2 years of the quarterbacks, and I know it's these guys are rookies right now, and we're going to talk about that coming up, but they're probably looking for a guy to invest in, and they may not feel comfortable buying Burrow. Obviously Tua with the injury. All the guys from last year. Hurts didn't really do much against the Niners. He had a couple good plays. But you look at these 2 years of quarterbacks, and you're like, well, maybe I do want to invest in a running back, because these guys are just so far from proven yet. I'm not saying they're not going to be, but these guys, people may decide to go down the running back route, and there isn't anybody else you'd want to invest in besides Derrick Henry.
Yeah, Henry, and then you could even throw in wide receivers there. Guys like Deebo Samuel's having a huge start to the season. Cooper Kupp with Los Angeles has been remarkable. He had a huge game last Sunday. Those are guys maybe if you want to look. If you're not into, like you said, Burrow's been a little shaky. Same with Herbert. Tua's hurt right now. I think we found out today he's got a fractured rib.
Right.
So that could be really disastrous for the Dolphins. So maybe the better alternative investment. You mentioned the rookies. Week 2 was not kind to the top 2 picks in the NFL draft. This is going to happen. I do want to throw this out. The most interceptions by a rookie in their first 2 weeks. Number 1 is still Peyton Manning. That guy turned out to be pretty good.
Yes.
Tied for number 2, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson.
Jeez.
You can look at that in 2 ways. There's also a lot of other guys on that list who ended up having very good NFL careers. But yeah, you can look at it 2 ways. Either, hey, it means that they've got the full confidence of the offense, of their coaching staff to sling the ball, and they're going to make mistakes because they're rookies. Or, oh no, it's happening again. We have 2 massive rookie busts. Of these 2 guys, Zach Wilson, he had 4 picks, 19 for 33, and you have Trevor Lawrence, 14 for 33, only threw for 118 yards passing. He did throw a touchdown and 2 interceptions. Which of these 2 guys 2 weeks in are you more worried about going forward?
Absolutely, Zach Wilson. I mean, I think he came on the radar. I mean, he wasn't like a sleeper, but I mean, the Niners were thinking about taking him, and the Jets were talking about, they were Mac Jones, so it wasn't like a for sure thing. Whether Trevor Lawrence has been a for sure thing for 2 years, right? So, and that's the situation when you have the 1 and 2 pick, and you've been the 2 worst teams. I mean, they draft a quarterback first overall instead of getting the best lineman or maybe the best pass rusher or the best receiver. So they're in need of some weapons. So I think the expectations for the Jets and the Jaguars are just to get these guys' feet wet pretty much. They're not expected to go to the playoffs this year. But at the same time, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of Zach Wilson to really put my money towards him yet. I mean, they do have a new coach too. So, you're going to have maybe some situations, and I haven't watched a whole lot of Jets games, but, with rookie coaches, maybe some misuse of timeouts, misuse of personnel as they learn the system.
And Robert Saleh is a defensive coach. He's
Correct.
not coming in there to fix the offense. That's not really his job.
Yeah.
So you could also say that's kind of on the back burner. But I will say, from what I saw of Zach Wilson on Sunday, that was rough. That was really rough, and I know it was against the Patriots, and that's a Bill Belichick-led defense, and so they're going to pick apart a young rookie. But boy, just stark contrast of him versus Mac Jones that day too. It's not like Mac Jones had a huge day, but just how bad Wilson looked, and like easy picks, just really bad decisions. Whereas at least Trevor Lawrence in that first week, I know he had some ugly picks, but he looked like the part of a number 1 pick at times. There were glimpses of what you're going to get. I am a little worried that you brought in Urban Meyer, sort of an offensive mastermind, to come in and mold Trevor Lawrence, and 2 weeks in, the results are not so good.
It's definitely concerning, but, I mean, this guy's a national champion 2 times over. He knows how to win. I think, just like the Peyton Manning, you're going to take your lumps. You're going to figure it out. And as long as you're, a smart guy, can learn how to, not make those same mistakes, he's going to grow with that team and hopefully be their franchise quarterback.
Yeah, that's the one thing you can say with both of these guys is that they are going to get plenty of chances. That said, by the way, week 3, Justin Fields, where do you put his value now with these guys, with the top quarterbacks? You throw in Mac Jones there. Maybe you can throw Trey Lance as well, who did not see any action in week 2.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference. A team that has is a winning team, they don't have to play their quarterback at all and still get the win. I think Fields I think he's a buy, but I just don't like Nagy. I think the regime needs to change. Hopefully the GM or whoever was big on Fields was like, we're going to give Nagy 1 more year. I think they get somebody else in there and they change that system around a little bit. I think Fields is going to be a good pro.
Yeah, I think Fields has got a really high ceiling. I've said it a few times on previous shows, but I really think that Fields, because of where he plays, because of when Chicago Bears are winning, Chicago is a football town.
It is.
And so I think when Fields, if he can fulfill his potential, if he even has like a season where they go, I was about to say 9-7, I guess 9-8, 10-7, that would be a massive win for him and his popularity, and that's going to.
But they did make the playoffs last year, right? The Chicago Bears
just missed, I believe.
They just missed it. Okay.
Oh no, they did make it.
They did make it. Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It was the Nickelodeon game. That's why I forget about it. Where I think Trubisky was called the Nick MVP. So
interesting.
Despite a loss.
Well, and I think if I had to put the pecking order of the hobby, it almost seems like it's, and I don't know where to put Trevor Lawrence because he is the first pick, so he gets those first pick prices.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's Mac Jones and then Trey Lance. It's almost like the unknown is what people are buying.
Always what it is.
I was blown away. I think we might talk about it on the hype. I took a screenshot, but there was a 1-of-1 Trey Lance gold standard. It wasn't a patch. It was the Golden Debuts, which is a nice card. It was a sticker auto though, and it was ending, and it was over $4,000. For a sticker auto of Trey Lance, and so I and that's the funny thing about the hobby is like we almost don't want to see what they have.
Yep.
We want to dream of what they could be. We don't really want to see them on the field, and I think you had that with a lot of Zach Wilson buyers. Is like this guy, he's on the Jets. Talk about a bigger market. Jets are starved for some good football. New York starved for great sports. I know they got the Mets and the Yankees, but they're starved for the Knicks to be good, and the Jets or the Giants to be good. And if he does well, he will. His prices will go up. Also, something to mention about Mac Jones, which I thought was pretty cool. Did you see the first touchdown play and what happened afterwards? Mm-hmm. Where the receiver, it was his first career NFL touchdown, and the receiver was like, "Here's the ball," and he's like, no, you have the ball. He's like, no, it's your first touchdown. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I want to win games. It doesn't matter if my first touchdown. He's like, it'd be different if it was a Super Bowl scoring touchdown for me. He's like, the first touchdown doesn't mean anything to me.
He's a winner. That's what they're all saying in Boston afterwards. That kid knows what the goal is. He's a winner. Let's talk about sleepers as we head into week 3. You have a guy on Arizona that you want to mention. Arizona's getting a lot of love on this. Kyler Murray, obviously, but who is a sleeper that he's throwing to if you're looking for a little bit of a alternative investment here?
Well, he's throwing to everybody, but you got to look at Rondale Moore, and who has his he's a rookie premier guy this year, has all of his cards in all of the sets. And he had over 100 yards. He had a 77-yard play, had a touchdown last week. First week he had 60 yards. And he's being targeted a lot. He's a small, kind of like a Santana Moss kind of guy, or a just a smaller frame receiver. So kind of the completely opposite of a D-Hop or a A.J. Green or a Max Williams, who's actually doing well for the Cardinals as well. If you guys remember him as the old Raven, Max Williams, and he's their tight end there. And this guy's kind of like a nice trick gadget, kind of like, slot receiver that can, is extremely fast and definitely a sleeper. If they keep winning, I know it's going to be tough in that division. People are probably double coveraging D-Hop, A.J. Green. I don't know where he's, he hasn't played for a couple years, so I don't know where he falls in the pecking order. Obviously, D-Hop's the number one, but if he's covered by, like I say, Jalen Ramsey, they're going to put Jalen Ramsey on D-Hop when the Rams play the Cardinals.
Yeah.
That leaves some space for Rondale Moore to get even more touchdowns.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. It's at this point, anybody in the orbit of Kyler Murray, I think, is going to see their value go up. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, who already is one of, if not the best wide receiver in all of football. You see what's happening there. So, I think that's a pretty good call. Anybody playing in the desert is going to be reaping the benefits over the next couple of years. I'm going to go with 2 quarterbacks that I believe are going to face off on Thursday Night Football this week, potentially. One guy, Davis Mills. This is a guy I've actually been saying it before the season started as like a deep, deep sleeper because of the situation going on in Houston. There is the smallest possibility Deshaun Watson plays. I highly, highly doubt it, but it's probably not going to happen. So probably it's going to be Davis Mills who is under center because Tyrod Taylor, the unluckiest man in all of football.
Geez.
God, I just feel sick to my stomach.
I want to know what his career winning percentage. I feel like it's a pretty good winning percentage when he does play. I mean, had the punctured lung last year by accident that gives Herbert the start, and then it gets him ran out of town, and then plays great against, we were just talking about the Jaguars, plays phenomenal against the Jaguars, and then he gets hurt in week 2. It's just like, man, got to feel for the guy.
Yeah, this could be seen as is this our Ben DiNucci of 2021, Davis Mills? I don't think so, because he put up some numbers in college. I think that there is at least the smallest opportunity for him to do something. There are some weapons on Houston. Brandon Cooks is there. Mark Ingram as well. So there's the shot. There's a shot here that he could make some noise, and he's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than any of the other rookie quarterbacks right now. So if you are looking for like a dirt cheap deep sleeper, Davis Mills probably the guy. The other side of it, Sam Darnold. Yeah. I think you finally saw the potential.
Are they 2-0?
They are. This is going to be out in the edit. They are 2-0.
Yes.
Look at that. 2-0. We did our research. 2-0.
And they're listed above the Bucs too. So do they have more points?
Sam Darnold has been, a pretty resounding victory against the Saints. Remember we were all talking about Jameis last week? That's done. We're done with Jameis. Bye-bye. Hopefully you sold his cards in that 1 week because that's anyway. Yeah. He looked like old Jameis. Where Sam Darnold looked like the type of guy that the Jets drafted. And I think you also have to look at the weapons he's got around him. DJ Moore is a really solid receiver. Robbie Anderson, formerly a Jet, and obviously Christian McCaffrey. That's a pretty good trio of weapons to be thrown to if you're Sam Darnold. So they put the right guys around him. I think there's a good situation happening here in Carolina that I was kind of on the fence of, is he going to be able to figure it out? But change of scenery clearly is working right now. I haven't double-checked his prices as of late, but I still would guess that they pale in comparison. I'm going to guess this is kind of like a Baker Mayfield situation going into last season where you thought maybe there's a chance that he comes back.
And you also got to remember, we laughed about it last year, but maybe that's one of the reasons for their success. I haven't watched a lot of Carolina games, but 7 rounds last year, 7 defensive guys. They did not draft an offensive player last year. So I'm sure some of those guys are out there making plays, being that they did not spend any money on offense last year. So that might be the reason why they're in these games. And then Sam Darnold's making the plays when it counts. And then you've got McCaffrey that you hope he stays healthy. And because he's a top fantasy pick, obviously, on most drafts. And the guy can do a lot of things.
Yeah, there's definitely a belief. Clearly, you look at the defense, too. I think they gave up 14 points in the first game of the season. They gave up, maybe a touchdown against the Saints in week 2. So the defense is there. There's enough offensive weapons. This could be the Sam Darnold renaissance we've been waiting for. He's still very young. A lot of scouts still really believe in him, which to me is an indication that, hey, there's something here. I think that's a pretty good sleeper.
And you look at the Alex Smith situation. Granted, Alex Smith was on the 49ers for a lot more years than Sam Darnold was on the Jets. But the change of scenery, you can kind of give Alex Smith some credit that they built the Chiefs team around him and then kind of had it ready for Mahomes. But the Chiefs were playing – I think they played the Patriots 2 years in a row in the playoffs. So, the change of scenery helped Alex Smith. The Jets, you had all crazy eye Gase back there over there with Darnold. It was a mess. And, they needed a clean house there. And unfortunately, Darnold was a victim of that because his play was lackluster. And I don't know if it was because of the regime or it was because of Darnold. Right now, it looks like it was the regime and not Darnold.
How does Adam Gase, does he still have a job in football?
Not sure. I'm sure. Maybe somewhere. I think he's a good.
Because how?
He's the quarterback whisperer, apparently. But when you're working with Peyton Manning, and I think there was somebody else of that magnitude, I don't know so much if it's him being the whisperer or the talent around him.
Yeah, the thing I've noticed is it's quite the opposite, and clearly Sam Darnold left that and is finally being able to spread his wings. And
USC, I feel like USC hasn't had, and Stanford, talking about Davis Mills. I know we had Andrew Luck a couple years ago. I feel like USC's always got these guys that come out and we're like, and then they just John David Booty, what happened to him? It's like all these guys that are really good in college and then they just don't translate in the pros.
Carson Palmer is probably the last guy.
Yeah. Yep.
That's it. And it's not like I think he reached the levels that even he was expected to reach.
Yeah, I would have never thought that Carolina would be 2-0 at this point. I know it's still early, but it's some promising signs for that fan base.
Very, very promising.
And we thought the Buccaneers were just going to steamroll that division.
Well, they still very well might the way they're looking right now. Yeah, Tom Brady saying we can get better after scoring 48 points. All right, buddy.
Yeah,
Come on.
Exactly.
Slow down. Don't rub it in. All right, that's going to do it for the Mojobreak Blitz. Who are you buying in on? There's some sleepers we didn't mention. Teddy Bridgewater for Denver. He's looking good right now. Are we finally seeing Teddy finally pick it up as well? Derek Carr, we mentioned. All these other guys.
How about Taylor Heineke?
Yeah. Taylor Heineke.
I don't even think I said his name right.
I was going to say, is he going to be good enough that we know exactly how to pronounce his name? It happens. Giannis Antetokounmpo. We all can say his name now like it just came out like butter. Taylor Heineke. Heineke?
I don't know. It seems like I want to go to the fridge and see if I have a Heineke in the fridge.
Exactly.
And make sure you guys check out Mojobreak.com for your breaks. We've got Donruss is on fire with the downtowns right now. Downtowns are on fire. C-Rad just pulled a Tom Brady auto out of there. Great stuff. You get great value with the amount of rookie cards you're getting. And we're still doing black football, still doing certified. So a lot of great football releases at Mojobreak.com.
Make sure to like and subscribe this video and subscribe to Mojobreak Media, I should say, for more content all throughout the NFL season. We will see you next week on the Mojobreak Blitz.